Up until the 1970s, I think it's fairly safe to say that the only commercially grown lettuce in this country was the iceberg lettuce. Now, 3 decades on, head to the supermarket and there's a whole lot of lettuces you can choose from to use in your salad. Mesclun, radicchio, whitloff, mignonette, rocket, of course, and still the iceberg, which happens to remain a particular favourite of mine. One of Australia's finest chefs, Damien Pignolet of Claude's and Bistro Moncur fame in Sydney, has just put together some of his favourite salad recipes in a new book called, I think it's called Salads, though it's got an E in there. How do I say that, Damien?
Salad. Yeah.
Salad. Damien is a chef and co-owner of Bistro Moncur and the Bellevue Hotel and Dining Room in Sydney. Damien, welcome to breakfast.
Thank you very much, Fran.
One of the key aims in salads is to broaden the definition of what a salad is. As I mentioned, perhaps here in Australia in the 70s, it was a bit of iceberg lettuce and a tomato cut into boats.
Oh, and don't forget the beetroot and the cucumber.
Well, that's right, from the can, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has it changed?
It's changed because we've travelled a lot. It's changed because we have a whole breed of new thinking in kitchens. The younger chefs perhaps might be middling with molecular gastronomy, but those of us who really love honest, pure flavours and freshness will certainly be looking for ways of making entrees that are more exciting and interesting and palate-teasing. And so out of that comes what the French have always called a salade composée, a composed salad. And it's a wonderful way to start a meal. It might be at room temperature, it might be chilled, it might be warm, it might be hot. So, for example, if we were...
Can I just stop you there?
Yes.
So when you're talking about a composed salad, you're talking about something that's not just a side dish. I mean, I always tend to look at the salads and think of them as a side dish to my meal.
Perfectly understood. And indeed, that's going back way before the 70s. No. The French have always used composed salads or a variety of raw materials as entrees, as a starting point in a meal. And curiously enough, probably the closest to that are the Americans, who have a quite large repertoire of salads that they serve at the beginning of a meal. Probably the most famous are Caesar salad and Waldorf salad. So if we consider something that's warm, for example, a warm salad, there's a wonderful one which in my book, which consists of scallops, which have been cooked at really, really high heat to get crust on them, but they're still quite raw inside, and then dressed whilst hot with a hazelnut vinaigrette, combined with whitloff leaves, which are slightly bitter and a little bit crisp, and sliced toasted hazelnuts. So you're getting the warm scallops against the slight crunchiness and bitterness of the whitloff, spiking nuttiness from the hazelnuts. It's a fantastic combination and a great way to start a meal.
And you're big on texture within the salad, aren't you?
Oh, look, texture is as important as palate. In fact,
So you can't just have all soft ingredients.
No. The one thing you don't start with is how it looks. It must start with palate. Palate is then as important in the balance as texture. And then it's up to you to make it look pretty.
And when you do, I mean, you're one of Australia's leading chefs. I presume you've invented some salads of your own, have you?
Oh, endless.
Endless. So how do you do that? Do you sit down and go, no one's done much with a fennel?
No, don't think about that at all. What you say, what's in season? So, for example, each day when we speak to our suppliers, we learn what's fresh and wonderful and brilliant or, terrific deal or whatever. And so given that raw material, I'm trying to think of something very quickly. Let's talk about the scallops again. Let's say the fishmonger said, look, I've got the most fantastic Tasmanian scallops. They're big, they've got roe on them, they're sweet, they're perfect, fresh, and so on. So then you would say, as the chef, now how can I create a salad from that? Well, they're sweet and sea-like and salty. How about we introduce something slightly bitter? There comes the whitloff. How do we get the balance? We're looking for something earthy. There comes the hazelnut. And the logical connection with that is the hazelnut oil. And it's as simple as that. But when I say it's as simple as that, you've got to have suppliers or be aware of what's in the marketplace. And it's that which stimulates then the creativity.
And can we all do that, or do you think this is the domain of chefs? Can we have this sort of salad revolution in Australian homes?
Fran, everybody can be a great cook. Chef just means boss, It doesn't mean that you're a super cook. So everybody who cares about what they eat can go through exactly the same experiences we do every day in creating a dish that, like I've just mentioned. So go to the market, see what's there, be stimulated by it, and then create something.
It's 8:21 on RM Breakfast. Our guest this morning is Chef Damien Pignolet. He's got a new book out. It's called Salad. It's a book chock full of salad recipes. All of us can do it. The impact of shows like MasterChef and all these cooking shows, are you seeing that the general Australian cook and consumer is better educated about food, is more interested in trying new things, more experimental in where they're prepared to go?
Fran, without question. In fact, if we want to see the passage of how we get shows like MasterChef, you need to go back to the 60s, and it's Graham Kerr who was the first person on television.
Galloping Gourmet.
That's right. And he created that revolution that started in Australia. Things were very much to do with the piece of iceberg and probably a dressing made from carnation milk. He took us to another planet, another plateau, and on it's gone with so many cooking shows. So that between that and, most importantly, travel, and of absolute importance, the power of the press, in particular magazines and columns like Leo Schofield's, for example, going back to when he was the chief reviewer for the Sydney Morning Herald, a major effect to expand the knowledge and the interest in food.
And it's important, isn't it, for, as you say, trends and fads, of course, but just educating the population more broadly. For instance, we were a little rude about the beetroot earlier, talking about, the beetroot in the salads in the 70s. But there's a lot of beetroot in your salad book.
Absolutely.
Beetroot is a fabulous.
Beetroot's a sensational food. It's highly nutritional. It's got a great colour. It's got a great texture. You can do all sorts of things with it to make a salad from one theme, beetroot. You could make at least, if I had a moment, I could give you at least a half a dozen combinations of composed salads. Things that go logically with it are celery. Why? Because it's slightly bitter, it's crunchy, and it's got lovely, long, moist texture against the...
What about the radish? My mum was always doing things with radish. Has the radish made a comeback?
I don't know about a comeback, but it's certainly used. I mean, the other radish, which is fantastic, is the Chinese daikon, which is hotter and has a different texture altogether. And
one other thing I should mention, there's not a lot of rocket in here, and yet Australians love rocket. And rocket burst onto the scene, 15 years ago, and sort of took over every salad plate?
Much more. A lot longer ago. There's rocket there, but it's part of everything else. I mean, I think there's too much rocket about. How often do you go to a restaurant, particularly cafes, and literally everything, has got sprigs or buckets of rocket?
But our top restaurants have gone the other way, and you barely can get a rocket leaf.
Well, if you could get really good rocket all the time, it'd make a big difference.
Okay, now I'm going to put you on a spot. We're still in the throes of election 2010. What salad could you create to reflect the political situation we're in at the moment?
That's an extremely interesting question. Okay, let's think of something absolutely revolting, because that's about where we are.
A little bit mix and match, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's mix and match.
A little bit bitter, a little bit sweet?
Very bitter, very sweet, and hopefully sweet outcome.
Well, one thing for sure, Bob Katter's in the mix. It's going to have banana or pineapple in it.
Absolutely.
Damien Pignolet, thank you very much for joining us.
That's a great pleasure, Jane.
Damien Pignolet is one of Sydney's and certainly Australia's top chefs, and his new book is called Salad, and it's out through Penguin. It's 8:25 on RM Breakfast.